Hello, everybody, and welcome to Level the Field Leadership. My name is Dr. Rachel Gallardo. I am your host, and as always, I'm very excited for the opportunity to talk to our guest today. We're going to talk a little bit about perseverance and what that means when it comes to leadership, what it means to come to life. But in general, I hope that you find this information valuable because I think we all have those moments where we tend to kind of struggle. And so maybe if you get to hear our guest story, that will give you some motivation to continue forward. If this is your first time, I just want to say welcome. No obligation for anything at all. I'm just very appreciative that you decided to click wherever you happen to be listening to this episode. And if you do like it, then keep coming back. We do post new episodes on the second and the fourth Tuesday of the month. So just little nuggets of information to kind of keep you motivated throughout your leadership journey. I do believe that workplace burnout is very real, and anything we can do to reduce burnout and fatigue in our leadership roles will ultimately have a positive impact on our teams, positive impact on us, help with our professional and personal development, just all kind of runs together very nicely. So let me go ahead and introduce you to our guest. So his name is Derrick Girard. And let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a successful entrepreneur and business consultant with a proven track record of solving problems while building and scaling businesses. But in 2023, he sold his tech company after navigating countless challenges and transforming it into the industry leader. The sale came on the heels of Derrick successfully defending his company and himself in three, not one, not two, but three major lawsuits seeking to destroy the very company he fought so hard to build. But throughout his career, he's honed his ability to really solve complex problems and drive growth, drawing from his deep understanding of business operations, strategy, and leadership, but most of all, his commitment to just figure it out. His hands-on experience makes him a trusted consultant for a lot of people and companies looking to scale, pivot, or overcome obstacles personally and professionally. But most importantly, because remember, we're not just who we are at work. Above all, Derrick values being a supportive husband and father, striving to maintain a balance between professional success and his personal commitments. And for those of you that are returning, and this is not your first rodeo or first time listening, I like to base our topics kind of around scripture because we don't get to really separate ourselves from our beliefs and values. So this comes from James 1:12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. So, Derrick, thank you so much for joining me today.
And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and for the lovely introduction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to this particular topic because I think sometimes we have a Pollyanna view of what leadership is. Like, oh, you're the boss, so you get to come and go as you please and you're in charge. And that's just not what leadership is at all. So, before we get too far into this, what inspired you to write your most recent book?
Well, it's the only book I've written, and the reason I wrote it was after everything that I've been through, personally growing up, and then of course professionally, and some of the things you talked about. One of the things that happened regularly was people would say to me, "Derrick, how did you do that?" And it was interesting. That question was always interesting because the way it was phrased was people were sort of looking for, I always felt like they were looking for like a checklist. Just
Mm,
tell me what I need to do. And I wanted to write the book, one, to share with everybody. There isn't a thing about me that's special. There isn't a thing about me that's unique. And that I think is really important. I've been to conferences and I've heard speakers, the guy with no legs who climbed Mount Everest. And you're like, wow, that's unbelievable. It's hard to relate to.
right.
And so I wanted to write this book to answer that question. How did you do that? And really, what it comes down to is it wasn't just something that happened at the point of the lawsuits and a point of the challenges. It was something that's been sort of brewing in me since I was a kid, based on everything I've been through. And as you touched on, to me, it was the figure it out mindset, is what I call it. And so that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to answer that question to show everybody it's not just me. It's not doesn't make me unique. It doesn't make me special. I believe everybody has that ability. It's just whether or not they choose to apply it.
hmm hmm So, in all of this, we're really going to be talking about perseverance.
Mhm.
So, what is your own personal definition of perseverance, and maybe how has that definition evolved as you've built up your clients and tried to motivate them and had your own personal life experiences to occur?
Yeah. Well, you touched on it a little bit when you talked about what it means to be the boss or what it means to be in charge. To me, perseverance, I think in the broadest definition is, do you believe in the goal more than you believe in the excuse?
Mm,
More importantly, do you believe in your excuse more than you believe in your goal? And so it's interesting to me, both as I was going through everything that I went through, again, growing up the way I grew up in school and business. It's interesting every time you get faced with something that's a challenge, do you believe that challenge is more significant than the objective on the other side? Because if you do, you know, you might as well just stop. You've lost right there. You've mentally already been defeated. And so for me, it was basically, what is the objective? What do I want to accomplish? And I get that there's an obstacle. I get that there's a challenge, and I get that it's massive, it's significant, that it might even seem insurmountable, but it's not. And so the question then becomes, all right, well, how do I tackle this? How do I deal with this? How do I approach this? And that's when you start figuring out the answers. You start finding the solutions because they're there. You just have to believe in it. And to me, that's perseverance, right? That is, in my simple definition, that's what I think it means.
hmm hmm Can you tell us about a time when you really had to use that example to really persevere and get through a challenging situation to get to the other side?
Yeah, well, gosh, how long do we have? I could tell you about all kinds of them. Um, I mean, I'll use a couple from the business, right? So I set out, I was a financial advisor and I found myself in this crazy situation. And so the solution for the problem that I was facing didn't exist. And so I set out to find the solution, not just for me, but for everybody. And one of the things that happened very early on was I was so excited about building this. And of course, I had this crazy idea that since it doesn't exist, every financial services firm in the country is going to be, you know, falling over themselves to get a chance to use this. Well,
Sure.
that wasn't the case. So
Right.
what ended up happening is a lot of these companies told me no. Some of these companies were so big, they said, thanks for pointing out the problem. We're going to spend our money and our time building our own solution. We're not even going to use you, but thanks for
Right.
bringing it to our attention.
Right.
And so for a lot of people, that rejection, no, is just earth shattering, right? It just crushes them. It's so defeating. And in sales, it's like they always say every time you get no, the phone starts weighing up a few pounds more. Every time you hear no, and eventually it weighs so much you can't pick it up.
Mm,
For me, it wasn't that way. And so every time I got a no, I was so laser focused on who told me no and why did they tell me no? What was it that I did wrong? Or what was it that I need to do better so that I never hear no again for the same reason? And that just changed the way I approach how to, you know, to build the solution and build how good I was at presenting the solution. And so every single company that did that, I thank them. And then I stayed in touch with them. It's what I call professional perseverance, right?
mm,
It's like this, there's a fine line between being a pest and being persistent. And I never wanted to cross it. So I
sure.
stayed in touch with all kinds of people constantly. And what ended up happening at the end of the day was every single company that said no eventually came back and said yes. Every one of them. And these
Wow.
weren't little companies. These were massive organizations that just gave me the no, the cold shoulder, go away, stop calling us. And
Right.
for me, I believed so much in the solution. I believed so much in what we were doing and how we were doing it that to me, the no wasn't a no. It was just a not now. And it was just an opportunity to figure it out and improve.
Sure. Sure. Now, I don't know what organizations you're talking about, but just in my experience from an operations standpoint and HR standpoint,
Mhm.
it likely was, oh, okay, we see that this is a problem. And I like to call it the sparkler effect. So you've
Mhm.
got these people that are super excited. Yes, we're going to implement this project. Woohoo, here we go. And
Yep.
then within a month, after the planning meetings and everything else, when it's actually time to sit down and do the work, they realize, oh, we don't have the right people in place. We don't have the right
Yep.
resources in place. We've got these four other projects we're working on, so we don't really have the time. And so before you know it, that thing that is really and truly important gets kind of put on the back burner and then it
Yep.
never gets addressed. So here you are, you keep calling every quarter, maybe every 6 months, reminding them that it's still a problem. And finally you're
Yep.
like, okay, yeah, we don't have the ability to do this. Here's somebody else that can. Let's explore this as an option because we know we need to get it done. We just don't have the ability to do so. So there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that a lot of people are not going to
Yep.
tell you about that are going on in their organization. So that like you said, that balance between, perseverance and pesting is really important because you just all you did was remind them, hey, you still have this problem. I'm here.
Mhm. Yeah, and the other thing too, and this is I was speaking at a conference here recently, and one of the things that I was talking about was I had to figure out because it wasn't initially aware, I wasn't really aware of it right away and really focused on it, but I had to really understand that the buyer for my product was very different than the user.
Mm,
And for a lot of people in a business sense, that's a hard thing to sort out. So the company was the one who had to say, yes, this product can be on our shelf. Yes, it can be used. They had to say yes and agree to buy it before the end user, who I actually was and who I built a product for, could actually use it. And that changes everything about how you present what you're trying to, the problem you're solving, because the problem to the user might not be completely apparent to the buyer. And so
sure.
every bit of that to me was just a tremendous opportunity to learn and evolve and figure out how do I do this better.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, there are instances where people can really and truly beat a dead horse.
Mhm.
So how do you know the difference between I need to continue to persevere because I know that eventually this is going to pay off
Mhm.
versus okay, this is dead in the water. I need to focus on something else. How do you know when that time is and how do you balance out that information?
Yeah. Well, again, this sort of gets back to the, I think some people wanting it to be sort of a checklist, right? I did this, I did this, I did this, ultimately didn't work. Now the checklist says I move on. It just again isn't nearly that cut and dry. Would be phenomenal if it was.
Sure.
To me, the only way to answer that question, again, whether it's personally or whether it's professionally, right? Think about business challenges you might have, but heck, think about a relationship you might have, a personal relationship that maybe you feel like isn't going anywhere. To me, I think the only time you can really do that and know you're making the right decision is if you were honest with yourself about everything else you did along the way. I
Mm,
think self-awareness is such a massive part of this. And I think so many people, including myself at times, I use self-confidence as a substitute for self-awareness, where I'm so confident that I'm just not completely aware. And I think only when you stop and go, okay, let's be completely honest with myself. Did I do everything I needed to do? Did I actually commit myself? Was I actually honest about my own faults and my own mistakes? Was I actually honest about the effort I put in? To me, if you can go through an exercise like that and say, yes, I truly did what I think is the best I could possibly do, exhausted all the options and the resources, I really gave it my everything, and I feel like I really did. That's how you know when it's time to move on or pivot or go a different direction. I think
mhm.
most people, though, don't. Because I think most people are very afraid of being honest with themselves because being honest hurts. I mean, it's not fun. You might find some things you don't like,
Yeah.
and then take the corporate world, right? When you don't want to be honest with yourself, sometimes that gets thrust upon you when you get fired. In the personal space, if you don't want to be honest with yourself, you might not be the one that calls quits to that relationship. The other person might. And so to me, I think it's an opportunity to learn, but I think you really have to be honest with yourself about all the things you've done leading up to that point. And if you feel like you truly did everything possible, then you'll know it's time to move on.
Hmm. And you can move on with peace because to your
Hmm.
point, if you know that you did everything that you possibly could and it still didn't work out, then it's like, okay, that this is my sign. I really need to move past it. But if there's ever
Yep.
any kind of doubt, then it's like, okay, well, let me try this one thing that I still haven't tried. Let me try that
Yep.
and see if it works. And then you can kind of make your decision from there. But ultimately just having no regrets. If you do decide to walk away from it, you've got no regrets because you know you did everything you possibly could.
And to that point, right? That's the other thing I love talking about is the black and white aspect of this whole thing. It's yes or it's a no. And that's the other thing that I really stress in the book, and I really stress with other people is, did you really give it your all? Or did you dip your toe in it? Did you give it a try, not fully commit, hoping it was going to work, and then pull yourself back out? There's so many people these days that sort of have this sort of dip their toe approach to life, and approach to growth, and an approach to everything. It's just crazy to me. And to me, give it your all, like truly commit and give it your all. That's when you'll know. And
Mhm.
I think you'll surprise yourself. I did.
Yeah. So have you ever had a situation that you felt like it was a failure? Like you felt like, okay, I've done everything I can possibly do. It's time for me
Hmm.
to walk away. And then later on, this whole thing, it turned out to either be a stepping stone or it just magically resurrected itself and was like, oh, I thought I was done, but I guess I'm not. Can you tell us about
Yeah.
a time when that happened?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest examples for me is I was 29 years old when I was presented with the opportunity to build my own financial services firm. And this organization reached out to me and they had heard of some of the things I was doing as a consultant. And they're like, we think you'd be perfect. And so I go out and I interview, and this is that self-confidence versus self-awareness. I was so self-confident. You could not have convinced me at that point in time I wasn't ready for this, right? I was so mentally like, I got this. And
Right.
the recruiters convinced me that it was me and I could do this. And so I went through this entire thing, and I remember getting into it going, oh my goodness, I'm so far out of my league. I am so unprepared for where I am. And it was an opportunity for me to do something about it. I was 29 years old. I could have leveraged other resources and picked their brain and told them I wasn't ready, but I decided not to. I decided to say, you know what? I'm not going to point that out to other people. I'm just going to see if I can do this. And I treaded water for a couple of years, right? I pretended I learned a ton, but eventually I left. And for me, leaving was one, I wasn't ready for that yet. Like I say to all the time that success is not an elevator ride. It's stairs all the way up, and you have to touch every one. And
Yeah.
for me, that opportunity, I didn't skip stairs. I skipped floors. And
Mm.
so when I left, I had to go all the way back down to where I was and hit all those stairs that I skipped along the way. And so for me, as I look back on that, it's easy for me to say it was a failure because I set out to accomplish something and I didn't. But to me, it was the greatest learning opportunity ever because without that failure, I would never have been able to do anything else I would have accomplished since then. It just never
Yeah.
would have
Yeah.
happened.
Out of curiosity, have you ever been fired from a position before?
Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, the answer is yes. But I've never been fired and I didn't see it coming. So when I say the answer is yes, it's because I've made it. Again, there was a position that I had where I made it very well known that I didn't want to be here. This was not what I agreed to. This was not what I signed up for. And eventually that position was eliminated, right? That was an easy way of getting rid of me was we just eliminated the role. So in
Sure.
that regard, yes. But I don't think I've ever been fired where I didn't see it coming or, terminated from a role that I didn't see coming.
Sure. Sure. No, I only asked that question because I have. And it was basically the owner of the organization was asking for me to do something that was unethical.
Mhm.
I told the owner that this is not okay. This is not written in our handbook. You are going to have a lawsuit come on you if we go down this route.
Yep.
And because I refused to do what he wanted for me to do, I was let go. Sure enough, he followed through with what he wanted to do within a couple of
Mhm.
months after I left. And within about 6 months after that, everything that I said would happen ended up happening.
Yep.
Those employees got together, they filed a lawsuit against the organization. They won the lawsuit. Thankfully, because I was no longer there and I didn't go along with the plan, I was not named as a part of it. And, they won their money and things like that. So, it's interesting how you're talking about moving forward and knowing when to walk away. I knew that me going to this owner and saying, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. He was not a person that really liked for people to disagree with him or to push back.
Mhm.
And so I knew that I was putting my job on the line. But in hindsight, I mean, this was decades ago. I'm very thankful that I did because I still have people from that organization that reach out to me and ask questions and things like that. And it was a great learning tool and everything worked out as it should have. But it can be really scary for you to
Yeah.
do something that you know is right. Know that this is like I felt like I was torpedoing my career, and in actuality, it was
Yep.
probably the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah, and I think that's when you start to realize just how strong you believe in something, right? Your moral compass for me, when that happened to me, it was because morally similar to you, I just completely I disagreed with what I was being asked to do.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, when you make moral decisions, to me, those are generally the best decisions in the world. And you start to realize some of the people like we've talked before about being the boss. Don't be the boss, be the example, lead by example. And that was the thing that I loved about having my own company was everybody knew you could question what we were doing. You could jump going to these meetings and let's actually have an open dialogue. I don't have all the answers. I'm just facilitating the conversation. That's what I
right.
love about the consulting world I'm in now is, it's just so much fun. I just get to ask all the questions and just be a part of the facilitation of the conversation. It's amazing when you put down your guard, what you find out.
Hmm.
It's amazing how many similarities you have. It's amazing how many people are actually on the same page, but they're afraid to say it.
Hmm.
And that is a pretty powerful thing. So you went through it. I've been through it. If you're listening to this, my guess is you've been through it. If you haven't, at some point, you probably will.
Hmm.
And that's just, part of growth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if anybody's listening right now and you're kind of considering going into consulting, that is definitely the bonus of it, is
Hmm.
that you walk in and you can tell an organization, here's what I see.
Yep.
If we do this, here's what happens. If we do this, option B, here's your other option. Just choose your option. It's almost like you can kind of detach yourself from the
Hmm.
situation because it's like either do it or don't. And you get to decide, the company gets to decide what they're going to do. And then you as a consultant can decide if you're going to go on that journey as well. So there is a lot of freedom in consulting, because if they decide not to do it and everything happens the way that you said it was, well, then they'll probably pick up the phone and call you and say, "Okay, Derrick, you were right. Now can you help us come in and fix the problem?"
And that's the fun thing for me when I talk to these companies is I make sure they understand it's not about me being right. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to
Mm,
just help you identify things, see things maybe a slightly different way, ask questions a slightly different way, find different opportunities for improvement, share those with you and help you overcome whatever it is that's standing in the way. And so
mhm,
I could care less if I get an attaboy for being right because there's nothing in it for me for being right other than knowing that I helped. And so
mm.
that's the objective for me. And again, that's putting the ego aside because I've been there. I've tried to do that, and my self-confidence and ego led the way for a while. I'm done with it. I just don't need that anymore. And I think that's a pretty powerful thing.
Nice, nice. So let's talk a little bit about community. So how can the role of building a community or having some sort of mentorship program help whenever we're in those moments where we have to persevere? What's been your experience with that?
Well, I'll tell you how I messed it up. I'll give you that as an example.
Okay.
When I went through my lawsuits, so I was building this company, and right as things were starting to go well, everything sort of fell apart. And it's what I talk about in the book, even is everything just fell apart. A competitor came after us for patent infringement. My business partner, who happened to be my uncle, tried stealing all the software we had built. An investor was all of a sudden demanding more than what we agreed to. It was just crazy, everything at the same time. And at that point, I had done such a good job of building this professional network within the, financial services industry that what I should have done was leaned on that network. What I should have done was gone to these people and said, here's what I'm dealing with. I'd love to pick your brain, help me understand. I did the opposite. I actually shut the network down.
Mm,
And in my mind, I didn't want to be a burden to the network. I didn't want to bother these people who have their own things with my own problems. And I also kind of didn't want to let on that, oh my goodness, this is my almost crumbling right before me, right? I also didn't want to let that on. And so for 3.5 years of dealing with all these lawsuits on my own, I did it all on my own. And
mm,
that's really, really hard to do when you don't have anybody to lean on. And even my wife and I have been through a lot together. But even at that point, she felt like I should just throw in the towel. Like, this isn't worth it. You're getting attacked from all angles. What if you just closed the company down and moved on? In my mind, I couldn't do that. And so I didn't have anybody to lean on. And so I took all of that on myself. That takes a very special and kind of stupid person to do. It's not recommended. It is a lot of pressure. You put a lot of stress on yourself and your body,
right.
and your mind. And so I did it wrong. And so one of the things that I talk about today is build that professional network for other people. I'll be part of it. I'll be a sounding board. You can call me and vent and just, I want to be there to be able to be that person that I needed that I didn't have. And
Yeah.
so that to me makes a big difference. And so when I talk to people, especially as they're starting a business, understand who else has been there, who's gone through those shoes. Not necessarily the person that's running a business is the same person that built the business. So understand who the person is that built it, because that person went through a very different struggle. And so figure out who those people are, figure out how to leverage them, how to talk to them, how to use them as a resource. because it'll make your life a lot easier, and generally it'll make the struggles a lot shorter. The time frame
Mhm.
of overcoming them when you start having the right network, your life becomes a little bit easier because these people probably know a little bit more than you might think.
Sure, sure. And they can offer up a lot of clarity too.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, whenever you are in the thick of a situation like you're describing, it's hard to really and truly see what is going on.
Hmm.
I know some people can sometimes lean a little bit more emotional. And so having somebody as a support system can kind of draw you back in and help you think a little bit more logically through it. Like, okay, we had that emotional dump. Now
Yep.
let's talk about the logical steps of what it is that we need to do. And at this moment, everything is okay. Yes, you do have to plan all of these other things that are happening, but right now, let's just breathe for a second because
Yep.
you're good. And I think oftentimes, like, I mean, I like how you said you didn't want to be a burden. I think we make that assumption in our heads more
Yep.
so than what is actually true. Because then whenever we do finally, word vomit everything that's going on to somebody that we care about that could have been a mentor, they're just sitting there like, I don't know why you didn't tell me. I could have helped you with X, Y, and
Yep.
Z.
Yeah, and I dealt with that when I was done with everything. People are like, I had no idea you went through that. And I think you might have touched on at the very beginning this idea of sort of work-life balance and having this balance. And for me, one of the things that I share with people all the time is I don't believe there's any such thing as a balance. What the objective is how do you focus your time? So for instance, you might find yourself at a point where it's 50-50 on work, 50% on family. For me, I found a time it was like 80-20 because it had to be. And so the
Right,
trick is while I'm in my 80, can I be truly focused on the 80? And when I'm in my
right,
20 with my kids and my family, can I truly be focused there?
right.
And if you don't have the right network of people to help you stay focused when you're in one or the other, everything just bleeds together. The tension bleeds together. I found that the tension bleeds, the stress, everything just sort of blends together. And that's what you're trying to avoid. It's not
Yeah,
easy, right? I say all the time, it's simple, but not easy.
right,
That's
right.
it's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. I think work-life boundaries should
Yeah.
be a phrase that we lean into a little bit more. Because like you said, there are periods of time. I mean, even within my own professional role, I just know that there's certain seasons out of the year
Yep.
that I just know are going to be super intense. I'm not going to be able to focus as much on my personal, but then there are other seasons throughout the year that are a little bit lighter when it comes to professional. So I can be a little
Yep.
bit more present for the personal stuff. And just recognizing that and knowing when it's coming and seeing it for what it is can be really helpful and not to have guilt. Just know that, this too shall pass. It's only for a season. I just need to work through it. And then once this season is over, then I can go back to having a little bit more of a structure that works.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, we come to the point in the episode where I like to call it the shameless plug. So I like to just kind of turn the floor over and anything that you want to talk about, anything that you've got going on, as long as it's legal. Um, I'm happy to give you a few minutes to kind of share that with the audience in case they want to go explore it.
Well, I'll start this with a message I got this morning, a text message I got from a very loose connection of mine. And he sent me a picture late last night that I didn't get because I had already fallen asleep of him he's at a hotel. And he's got his laptop and my book sitting right next to his laptop. And he said, I ordered this for some reading on this business trip. And I didn't see that last night, but this morning I got a message from him that says, hey, this is a great book. I'm dealing with a few challenges at work about leadership and dealing with the C-suite executives and pushing my agenda internally. I just wanted you to know this is a great book for me right now. Thank you for writing it.
Yeah.
And that to me is awesome to hear. I don't claim to be an expert in anything, but I wanted to write this book because I think it's important for people to understand. In my simple opinion of what I've been through, here's how I think what I call the FIO mindset works, the figure it out mindset. Here's how you apply it. Here's how you start getting honest. And it's not just about me and my journey. It applies, and I use examples from so many people's personal situations that you can probably relate to. And so getting a message like that is awesome to hear. And so my shameless plug is if you're listening to this and you're looking for a good book that hopefully is easy to read and relatable to, check it out. You can check it out on the website. My website is derrickgirard.com. And there's links there to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Walmart and all the places you can find it. But I'd love for anybody who's is looking for a good book to read it. Give me some feedback on it. Let me know what you think. And if there's anything I can do to help professionally, right? So if somebody wants to reach out to me as a speaker or as a consultant or just somebody to talk to, they can find that on my website as well. Just reach out. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to be a resource however I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for those of you that are listening right now, you should be able to find all of Derrick's social media information and website information in the show notes. I mean, I agree. I mean, connect with him if you just need that boost of motivation. If maybe you're going through a really challenging season and you just need somebody to bounce some ideas off of, and tag us. If you know somebody else that could benefit from this, maybe they actually opened up to you and said, "Hey, I'm really struggling." You can tag us and any social media thing, and we'll be happy to reach out to that person too. I don't believe that leadership should be something that we do independently. It really and truly is a journey, and what you offer might be able to help somebody else, and then in turn they can help somebody else in the future. So we're all connected in some way, shape, or form. But I do want to encourage everybody and just remind you that you are made to be a leader exactly where you're at, wherever you're leading. And I have no doubt that the things that we talked about today can kind of help you develop the roots of your leadership so that way you can weather any storm. Derrick, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This was fantastic.
Sure. And for those of you that are listening, make sure you take care of yourself, take care of your team. Remember, you can 1000% do this. And until next time.